in the chat. Shoot the breeze topic number 2 is so Malcolm X defended interracial dating and became a humanist? Question mark. That change in Mecca really struck at his core. This came with a link. Hold on. This came with a link. Let me share it with you guys. That takes us right back to Twitter. So this is I bet you this is a thread. It says, let me make sure you guys can see it well. Yes. So we got some ones in the chat there. Good. I'm glad you guys are enjoying the conversation. So this is a tweet from Renzo Cavallo. Let me translate it. It says, on January 19th, 1965, a few weeks before he was assassinated, the interview that Malcolm X gave to Pierre Berton on the CBC program Front Page Challenge was aired. On the occasion, he spoke about topics such as racial integration and interracial marriages. Okay, let's see. Other topics were also addressed, such as the split between Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam. Malcolm's comments regarding the death of John Kennedy and Malcolm's proposal to react to the violence of white supremacist groups such as the KKK. Below, some excerpts and with the source at the end. Okay. So this expert says Breton. Okay, so this is the interviewer, Breton. Okay, do you still believe that all white people are devils and all saints are black, as I'm sure you did under the Black Muslim movement? Malcolm X says, this is what Elijah Muhammad teaches. No, I don't believe that. I believe, as the Quran teaches, that a man, hold on, that a man should not be judged by the color of his skin, but by his conscious behavior, by his actions, by his attitude towards others and his actions towards others. The interviewer Breton says, now, before I leave Elijah Muhammad and go to Mecca and see the original world of Islam, you believed in the complete segregation of whites and blacks. You opposed both integration and interracial marriage. Did you change your mind then? Malcolm X responds, I believe in recognizing every human being as a human being, not white, black, brown, or red. This goes to the next tweet. When you are dealing with humanity as a family, so this is Malcolm, when you are dealing with humanity as a family, there is no question of interracial integration or marriage. It's just a human being marrying another human being, or a human being living around and with another human being. It goes on to say, I can say, however, that I don't think the burden of defending such a position should be placed on the black man, because it is the white male collectively who has shown that he is hostile to interracial integration and marriage and these other steps towards unity. So as a black man, and especially as a black American, I don't think I would have to defend whatever position I previously took, because it's still a reaction from society, and it's a reaction that was produced by white society. So this is written in a foreign language, so I always have to hit the translate shit for the tweet. And so Malcolm continues, and I think it's a society that produced this that should be attacked, not the backlash that develops among people who are victims of this negative society. So Breton says, but you no longer believe in a black state? Malcolm X says, no. Breton says, in North America, Malcolm X says, no. I believe in a society where people can live as human beings based on equality. So closing these quotes here, it is worth noting that after having traveled to Mecca and having witnessed the Afro-Asian independences and how his leadership and how his leaderships were organized, Malcolm X radically changed his opinion in relation to issues such as race as a biological factor or the adaptation of black people within a capitalist society. The NOI believed in the creation of a black state within America. So I was told to do like 9 of those threads. So I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. Let's welcome in the forecast. Forecast, how are you this week?
What's going on, y'all? I come on and chill with y'all for a little while. I don't know how long I'll be able to
What's
stay.
up, forecast?
Amani
Amani
Mangu.
forecast.
Amani Mangu.
Yeah, forecast. Thanks for coming through. It doesn't matter how long you can stay, man. I appreciate you coming through all the same. You know. Marcus Garvey is way out in the chat, says good night, and they still killed him. Right? Good night, and they still killed him. Hajrali Podcast says he switched to Sunni Islam from NOI, so makes sense. His dedication would have been to Allah, and not necessarily race-based, but would have to hear the interview to actually hear the context. Interesting. That's an interesting point, Webb. You know, and that's that right there. What Webb said, that's my issue with religion. That's my issue with religion and all this thing. These folks will ignore the trampling of their own people because it's Allah's will. That's Jesus. That's Jesus' will. You know, and I don't like that. It shows you, and I was just about to use the same word Kenna just used, but it shows you this confusion that these religions give our people, man. And I don't want to get into a religious bashing because I'm not about bashing religions, but I grew up in that Christianity thing, and I know what it does from what it doesn't do. And I know the confusion this stuff creates, man. And we see some of this now in this tweet thread. So I appreciate this. Let's have a good conversation about it. That said, so Malcolm X defended interracial dating and became a humanist. That change in Mecca really struck at his core. Forecast, I know you just arrived, but I'm assuming you heard most of that reading of the thread. What say you to this? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, and I saw him talk about this before. And I'm not gonna lie, he kind of lost me at this point, you know what I'm saying? So I'll just rewind to like 1962 or something like that. But
this is when he had the turban on his head, right? During the interview?
Well, the one I saw, he didn't have a turban, but it was
okay.
I'm not sure though. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? I don't think it was this interview though either. But I saw somebody ask him about that, and he was like, you know, he was just explaining that after his trip to Mecca, you know what I'm saying, he saw things differently, you know what I'm saying, and he saw it as the, you know, human race, you know, and like he did continue to speak up for like black people, like you can't respond to this and that, but and the only religious group, like, you know, the NOI, they did call for separation, even though they're a religious group. But the problem is, you know, with religion, like you was just saying, you have to see them as your brother, because even like Khalid Muhammad, if you look at the Donahue show, the dude was like, yeah, I'm a you know, or whatever, and he was like, if we share the same religion, he was like, well, you may be my religion by faith, you know what I'm saying, but not my brother by, or you may be my brother by faith, but not by religion. You know, and that's the thing with religion, that is always going to be conquering, but that's another part of it. It also makes you think that defending yourself or speaking up for your people, or even saying we should be separated because we just have different practices and different whatever, it makes you think like, oh, I'm sinning, or I'm cursed, or I'm bad. You know, these thoughts of religion put all of these things in our head that I think hurts us, you know. But I know a lot of people got a whole lot of theories about Malcolm X in this time. I'm not one of them, so I don't know. I try to skip over this time. I ain't gonna lie. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I appreciate that forecast. I appreciate that response there. Why not have Ziki? You heard that
Yes,
whole
sir.
thread.
Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts?
What I would say is that as human beings, that we all, first of all, let me say this, that I don't agree with everything Malcolm X say, you know, and I don't even agree with what Marcus Garvey say, even though he's my provisional president. I would say, And also when you hear people talk, sometimes you have to understand the context he was speaking in. And lastly, I would say, because I'm prefacing what I have to say, lastly, what I have to say is when people speak, you have to understand every human being wears different hats. And based on that hat he is wearing, he is speaking from that standpoint. Now, I am a human being, and everyone in this panel are human beings. There are some people who don't consider the white race as human beings. I do. I consider the white race as human beings. If this society, used to see human beings as just human beings, there would be no idea of interracial dating. There would be no such thing as interracial dating in a so-called fair human society. When you take away all these different criteria that has been placed on us, speaking from that position, I would understand what he is saying because interracial dating would not exist. But as a realist, which is another hat that I'm sitting in, I am talking from the perspective as a black person in this society, as a black person, African person, whatever title you want to give to me. So speaking from that perspective, now I have a problem. If I'm talking from a Gavier perspective, now I have a different problem now because my lens is changing. So I could understand from the position that he is speaking, and plus he's a religious man too as a Muslim man, he would also have a other different spectacles or lenses from how he views the world. We wear different hats as human beings, and for me, uh, I would see this thing as problematic from a Gavier perspective, but from a so-called humanist perspective, if I was looking at the world in terms of if the world was just and fair, and the society and the countries or whatever have you that we existed in was as such, I could understand the perspective he was coming from. Let me lastly say this. Canada, the place where he was speaking, because it's the CBC, was founded by British people who came to Canada. They displaced the Indians and created a white state or white country. But now they have problems, or they trying to check and see if him as a black person would like to do the same thing and establish the same thing. But they sitting there from a point of judgment with all their privilege, because their fathers has already created the society, that so-called white state. But now they carefully watch to see whether that he wants to create a black state like their forefathers did in Canada. It's just an interesting paradigm because they didn't judge Malcolm X from the same standard of which they benefiting from. And that's an unfortunate reality, but it is what it is. And I guess they see the world like how they see the world. They're looking at the world as white supremacists. It's like, how in the world would you look at the world based off of the fact that you want to do what we do? Because you're not equal to us. It's a crazy dynamic and a paradigm. But I just realize and recognize that we wear different hats. Even though I just don't agree with everything Malcolm X says, I understand his point of view when he's speaking from this so-called say that and leave it there.
I appreciate that, Untouchable. Yeah, personally, I think it's unfortunate, because I don't think there's. I'll be very honest with all of you here. I don't really believe in the humanist approach, and I don't believe in it because of what's going on. Like, you can't come and conquer everybody, right? Conquer indigenous peoples, drive them off their land, kill them up, and all kind of thing, and then ask me, one of the people who was conquered, driven off his land, kill up, and all this kind of thing, come to ask me, well, don't you believe in the humanist approach that that we all humans and all that? Nah, that out the door. Once you did what you did, I'm done with that. And it saddens me to see black folks still kind of on this humanist thing. In fact, real talk, and I'm not blaming him for it, but I blame his parents, or his mom in particular, because his father was killed some years before him. But Emmett Till was on that kind of thing. I could go and do the shit that they do. I could go and whistle at someone, or whatever it is, right? I'm not blaming him for his death and all that stuff. Of course not. But we supposed to teach our children, like, nah, there's no humanist thing to hold on to here. There's no humanist thing to hold on to. After these people do you what they do you, and then they come around with the microphone asking you, well, do you hold a grudge? This guy, this white clown, Anderson Cooper did that. I forget which black person was a victim, was a hashtag again. But Anderson Cooper, I think Benjamin Crump was there too. He goes and talks to these people's family on a porch, and he's like, well, do you really hate the police? I mean, and it's like, dude, what the fuck are you asking them that for? Why are you doing that? Right? That's a heat check question to see, to monitor their temperature, right? To see if they're on this humanist shit, which they kind of were, whoever it was at the time. If you guys know in the chat, just remind me, right? But that humanist shit, that's all well and good if none of this other stuff had happened in history. But we're in a position where we can't really be on that. We have to be about ourselves. And so when the questions of, so I'm a little disappointed, Malcolm, when the questions of interracial dating and all this stuff come around, this is why I can't stand the religion thing. You got to get off of that stuff, man. This is no time to be no humanist now, man.
But Coco, if I say, all right, the reason, and I'm guilty of it too. I am guilty of it because I see them as mine. I see them as mine. But my perspective is they may be mine just like me, but we are in a competition. And my goal is to be a better, in the competition is to beat him at his own game. It's like if I don't look at him or the Asian man as human, how should I look at them? Should I look at them as devils? Should I look at them as Neanderthal, like some of my brothers would say? I mean, or non-human at all. Yeah, it's like I just look at them as human beings who I am in competition with, and it's my goal to defeat them at their own game or the game that I create, so I could carve out a space for myself on this planet. That's how I look at it.
I say just look at them as enemies and fuck the rest. That's your enemy. That's what we're supposed to be teaching our children, that and their systems, and look at their history. That's what they did. And we have to defeat that so we can control our own destiny and shape our own realities and stuff. Like, it kills me every day I think about the fact that I'm living in someone else's creation of reality. That kills me every day. And because we got so much of our folks who are humanists, who if the bell was to ring tomorrow that we got to take up what we got to take up, these guys won't take up nothing. These guys will go and plead with these men to stand down or something. I ask them to be human.
No, but I personally think that, see, I feel like some of the brothers, they think that these guys are gods. So they can't bleed like the human. They don't bleed the red blood just like me. You know what I mean? Human beings bleed just like you. They could be defeated just like you. You bring them down to your level. You know what I mean? I think it's, go ahead, forecast.
I'm sorry.
No, I think that these brothers, well, I think that these guys, they bleed the same blood as you. They are just prone to error. They are prone to being defeated just like you. So when you bring them down to a human level as opposed to a godlike level, you understand that they could be defeated as well. And I think that in a lot of our minds, we done souped up these guys, whether we admit it or not, that these guys are supreme. You know what I mean? It's like they can't be defeated. And I think that is
Hallelujah.
I believe that there's a faultiness in that argument, and I believe that we've been given ideas of their supremeness. So it's like we could never deconstruct, beat, or defeat what they have created. So that's why me personally, I bring them down to the human level, because as human beings are fraught with error, and they could be defeated as well. That's why I do it.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind that so much. I personally, I look at it as it's a given. These are human beings. right? And these human beings are our enemy. And that's the important part. You know what I mean? So that's my take on it. Let's welcome in Brother Bakari. Bakari, what say you? First, how are you?
What's up?
And then what say you?
What's going on, my brother? I'm good, Koku. What's up, Bawana Hagazuki? Zeke. What's up, KWAZ, the chat, everybody. But you know what, man? I was listening to you, Bawana. You was just dropping jewels.
What's up,
when
Bishop? Bishop? This is my Bishop right here.
when you were talking about how we have put them on that superiority level, we have put them on that superior level. Well, can't nothing happen to them. I'm going to tell the mind. Look, I have a couple of friends, they psychologists, right? Don't mean they right about everything, but I said it because this right here leaned with me. But anyway, right? When you call somebody white supremacist all the time, and you can give it whatever definition you want, but when you constantly say they are white supremacists, the root word to supremacy, they supreme. And we don't get that that's the message we are telling our people. The white people are supreme. The white people are superior to you. That's why, for me, I stay away from that. I ain't gonna ever call nobody no whites because they're not superior to us. But if you constantly teach that, and then if you teach that, you can't do something. You can't do something. Well, we can't do this and we can't do that and you can't. Eventually, in your mind, I can't do nothing with these people because they are supreme and they won't let me do something. So when we talk about Malcolm and he went back to, and he switched up when he went to Mecca, right? Do I think Malcolm saw a superiority complex in the European white folks? No, but if you ask me in all honesty, I do think he saw somewhat of a superiority, a small superiority complex in Arab white folks when he said he went over there and didn't see no racism. And we know that is not true. That religion gave him that, allowed him to see something that was superior to him. Now, the crazy thing is with the NOI, now Malcolm left and the NOI killed him, you know, before he got a chance to truly do much after he left, right? But the people that left the NOI walk around, they sell bean pies, they sell the final call. And down south in Georgia, they got I ain't gonna lie, they got the freshest fruit. And they say they stand on the corner, used to stand on the corner with fruit baskets, with the apples and pineapples and oranges and bananas. The freshest fruit in the world, man. I ain't gonna lie. But the only people that ever built anything from that crew is the people that left. Like, if you look up Medina, Mississippi, yeah, it's struggling right now. But it was built for black people. A lot of people don't even know it's there, but it was built for black people by black Muslims, former NOI. I want to say it was Elijah Muhammad's son that did Medina, Mississippi. But he did it after he left and became, I want to say, Sunni, right? If you look and you see the Son of Man, I don't know if y'all ever heard of the Son of Man, but he left that set of the NOI because they got a lot of them, but he have his own land. But the ones walking around talking and doing all that is haven't done nothing. But the ones who lean more toward to what Malcolm X, El Hajj El Malik El Shabazz, I think that's what his name was, lean more toward what he believed and was with him. You can see where they built and they did stuff, right? But back to how I started when I had to give Bawana his flowers, when I had to tell him what he was saying was so great. But today's time, it's going to be hard to truly build something. Not because we can't, it's because we've been told we can't do something. It's because, and guess what? White people don't tell us we can't. We tell us we can't. White people don't tell us we're slaves. We tell us we're slaves. We call white people superior. If you listen to the people that beat us down mentally, I ain't excluding what nobody else done because we know they are there. But some of our teaching sometimes, especially with the teachings of that one guy, Neely Fuller Jr., is just has gotten so big now in this generation with certain people pushing that. Just listen to what they teach and listen to the people that follow that teaching, and you will see they don't think they can do anything without white permission. White permission. White have to give you, white have to be okay with you doing it. That's why for me, I stay away from certain teachers, but on all that, man, I'm going backwards and I'm rambling on that. I get the mic.
Because I agree with you 100%. Black folks, this shit where a black person says, hey, maybe we should do blah, blah, blah. And here comes some Negro talking about, well, the white guys ain't gonna let you do that, man. They ain't gonna let you do that. And I know Bakari knows exactly who I'm talking about here. They ain't gonna let you do that. Like, yo, y'all get off of that stupid shit. Y'all get off of that stupid shit. You don't try nothing because you just assume they ain't gonna allow you to do it. Y'all get off of that stuff. You know what I mean? And the whole notion of the supremacist, I sometimes use the terminology just so people understand what I'm talking or who I'm talking about, because it's become so prevalent now. But I too try to stay away from that. I deal with who they are, mostly white nationalists, right? But we got to get off of this. Any kind of thinking leaning towards you think these people are powerful and mighty, get off of that. I remember Chris Rock said his father taught him. And this was one of the most shameful days in my life. This is about 15 years ago I saw this. Chris Rock said his father taught him growing up, you ain't gonna beat no white man. What does that mean? What does that mean? And more importantly, how did Chris Rock and them internalize that? You ain't gonna beat no white man. I forget the exact context right now, but basically, you ain't gonna outsmart or outdo this white boy. Y'all come off of that stuff. Man. In the chat, TriggerIP262 says, nah, fair human society probably never would happen. And even before the advent of colonialism, while there wasn't race, there was a concept of intercultural relationships. He says, and people had their loyalties with that too. Ketter says, I think he was still our Black Prince, talking about Malcolm X. Very sincere and loving Black people all over the world. I don't take that from him. Janelle is here saying good evening to Bitter Meds. Thank you, Janelle, for coming through. Always nice to see the ladies in these discussions, right? KW Don 7, shout out to KW Don 7. He says, I'm not down with New Testament Malcolm. Trighabi262 says, yeah, imagine telling an indigenous person to be a humanist. I think he's referring to what I was saying earlier. They have only one majority state in which people are purely indigenous. If I was indigenous, interracial would be a no-no. Ketter says, whites have a superior complex. First, they use religion to define their superiority. After, they use technology to define their superiority. And now it's human rights. Trigapi says, yeah, devils. He's talking to Buana. He said, yeah, devils is cool. Right? Call them devils. Right? Trigapi says, you could also argue that putting them on a human level is where you sympathize with them. That's what I'm getting at, Trigapi. Right? So you need to go further. They aren't the same as you on any level. I can get behind what Trigapi is talking about there. He says that's why devils is good. Demonize them as much as possible because so much of our people love them. The matron is here. Y'all shout out to the revolutionary matron. Give her a nice hail up in the chat.
Shout out to the matron.
All right.
What's up, matron?
You guys give the matron some love in the chat. She says, greetings, everyone. She says, we cannot deal with them the way we need to because we still value their money. Until we change our relationship with money, we will not change our relationship with them. Shout out to Stephen A. Smith on that comment right there. Trigger262 says, it's like no matter how you want to crack it, these are the villains of modern history, maybe even more than that. Right? He says white hegemony is greater, much greater than white supremacy, but I know the historiography of white supremacy is simply their ideology as well, which is why it's used. Candace says, white people feed, clothe, and shelter us. They control our food and educate our children all over the world. African black leaders go to Whitey, to white people's summit and organizations. That's a shame that we're in right now. He says the U.S. African summit is soon. These leaders were at an EU summit a few months ago, so we're powering their egos by constantly coming to beg. Well said, brother. Well said. Forecast shouts out to Matron. Any last thoughts on this prompt here?
Yeah, can I speak on a couple of things you just said, right? On a couple of those comments, right? When Trigger Happy said, don't put them on a human level, that's almost like sympathizing with them, right? But if you don't put them on a human level, they stay above you and you don't think you can ever fight them. Now, for me, that's why I got to keep them there. Matter of fact, I got to be stronger than them on this human level because we got to fight the human. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm not sympathizing with them. I'm not sympathizing with none, right? With none of our enemies, right? Because they're not our only enemy. But I keep them right there at that level because I know that's who we gonna have to fight. Now, when Keita said they feed, clothe, and shelter us, right? Yes, to an extent, right? Mostly. I can say yes. But that is something we can do something about, right? We can literally do something about feeding, clothing, and creating shelter, creating a better system for ourselves. But as long as we think they're so much above, we're going to have to stay in this system. And then someone said something about the money. I don't know, have any of y'all ever heard of Berkshire, not share, but Berkshire coins? You ever heard of that? See, something else we can do, right? It's still money, but we can create our own money. When I ask, had you ever heard of Berkshire coins? You can look right here, and it started in, I want to say, Boston. Well, some white people, some white nationalists, and I guess they let other people can use it now, but they just created their own. They created their own monetary, like $1 of Berkshire's. I'll get the real name. I don't ever say the name right. $1 is like 80 cents US, but they just created their own money. So there's things that we can do, but we have to want to do it. And we're going to have to want to get in these streets to make it work. That's my take. We got to hit the streets. Now I'm done.
Hey, can I say something?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with y'all point about the supremacy part, because I don't think they're supreme, but I do disagree with that, we all, one human race kind of mindset, you know what I'm saying? And Coco, you mentioned like Emmett Till, but you could just mention the brother who was with the white girl who was supposed to be a model or whatever, and they took like 4 months to arrest her, talking about, even though she stabbed him to death, you know what I'm saying? And it's like it's a culture, a system that, you know what I'm saying, they have created, which, you know what I'm saying, hurts us. And like, as far as humans, you know what I'm saying, like, but the thing is, there's different types of humans though, you know what I'm saying? And according to them, they'd be like, we got Neanderthal DNA. But if we look at the history and the way that society is set up, as a psychopathic kind of society, and then you in that society, and the problem is, I don't think that we are made for this type of society, you know what I'm saying? And then you throw back with the religion thing, with the we are all humans, and then that goes back to like, because a lot of times we be like, we the ones that got to go spread the wisdom of God to the world. And then while we're doing that, they're taking our resources, all of our stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that a Neanderthal can't bleed or die. I don't think that they're God or nothing. I do think that a lot of Black people, because they would say superior, which would create an inferior complex, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, just the way that we do things differently, our bodies are affected differently. So it could be humans, but there's different types of humans, you know what I'm saying? And it don't mean, you know what I'm saying, they don't bleed. But we're not even saying like, let's go out there and oppress other people. We're saying like, let's go out there and build our own stuff. Now the problem is other people, which are these other groups of people who show these tendencies for thousands of years, keep coming up on our spaces down. So at some point you're going to have to be like, yo, whether they're human, whether they're alien, whether they're whatever that they are, you know what I'm saying? Like if you run up on here and trying like to pull another Black Wall Street, then is a price to pay, you know what I'm saying? But you know, I don't think that I think that we all human stuff does tend to lead to a lot of weakness, you know what I'm saying? For us, you know.
Yeah, I feel you on that, Fork. And Trigger Happy beat me to something. But yeah, he beat me to something. I was going to mention this earlier too. So let me read these last comments here. Trigger Happy 262 says, I don't think we're saying anything too different. He's talking to Bakari. But I think you are forgetting how our people think. How our people think is that because they are human, they aren't our enemies. I could agree with Trigger Happy in this couple chats here. He says, I'm saying they are enemies. Devils give them an enemy connotation. Humans give them a friendly connotation. The NOI found use in this mythos, and it worked. Keta says about Bakari, yes, we need alternatives. That's what China is doing. China is undermining their institutions by creating their own. Trigger 262. Also, humanism is what gives our people the incentive to be intimate, capitalized, intimate with them. This is a pacifying force. Humanism makes people forget that they are the reason you are a lower class. Yeah, I agree, especially that last part. That I meant to mention that earlier. That humanism thing is why, like I said, our children go around them slunking, thinking they could do the same shit that their children do and get caught up. It's also, as Trigger Happy pointed out, why you see these folks, a lot of our folks too, to a certain extent, commingling with these people and stuff like that. I think Buana wanted to say something. Buana, go ahead.
I have a question for Keta in particular, because he made a statement that white people feed, clothe, shelter us. They control our food and they educate our children all over the world. My question to him or her is: has he ever lived in a world where that wasn't the case? Because it's been my experience, a personal experience, where I've lived in a world where Black people feed, clothe, and shelter me. And as far as control of food, my granddad was a pig farmer. He had chickens, and he had a boat where he used to fish. You know what I mean? So it's like he controlled the food source. You know what I mean? And I knew on a personal level that my mother used to go to get um to get fabric so we could have our uniform sewn together in terms of clothes. And I mean, my brother-in-law, he builds houses. So I understand what he's talking about in an indirect way when it comes to me, but I'm saying that has he ever considered a world where Black people could create all these kinds of things or do all these kinds of things for themselves? It's not by necessity. I think that some of these things we give our willingness to have others control our situations, maybe for financial means and other reasons. But I think that we are skilled enough and we have enough skill to do all the things that we feel that white folks do for us. I think that the reason why the world is how it is, it comes with our acceptance of it. And I think that we are complicit in this kind of world that we have right now because we could do all these things: feed ourselves, clothe ourselves, shelter ourselves, and educate. All my teachers were Jamaican. I'm looking at them, educate me. I mean, what are you talking about? I mean, so I understand what he means by in an indirect way, but I think that there's a world that exists that these kinds of things, that is an unnecessary reality that we willfully accept, and we don't have to accept that reality because we all have skills or have the ability to perform all these different tasks for our people. I think that we willingly allow these things to happen. But I would say, like Brother Bakari always says on his shows, support Black business.
Yeah, Joshua, I hear what you're saying. I grew up similarly, but I have learned, and I guess that comes with living in America these years. I've learned to expand the lens, right? To zoom out and see the larger picture. And he's not wrong, man. Marcus Garvey is the way is in the chat. She's saying it right here. She's saying in America, but the truth of the matter is in most of these black countries, if we're really being honest, we're talking about nations now. You know, if the power grid go down, they reach out to some Canadian white company, some UK company, and that's who comes in, some US company, that's who comes and really fixes that grid. They might work with some of the indigenous folks, but really they come in and fix, and you have to buy the shit from them anyhow, which is why they come in. So if we're being honest about it, right, especially in America, you got, if something go wrong with you right now, you got to get on that phone to some white person. That's real talk. Yeah, you might could talk to an electrician who's black here and there, but if the grid go down, yeah, you talking to a white person representing a white, company. You know what I mean? So we have the abilities, that's true, but we're not organized. We haven't organized our abilities to be able to reject, all of this so-called humanitarian aid and all this type of stuff Africa is plagued with right now. We haven't organized our abilities. And so, we got to deal with what it is. We're under this situation where, most of our shit comes from foreign, if we're being honest. If we're being honest,
80 up to 80, we import up to 80% now.
Grocery.
Up to 80%. I agree with that. I'm not taking away from the strength of his argument. I agree with that. I think that all I'm saying is that there was a time when the numbers wasn't, that 80% wasn't so high because we didn't even have the money to even import. So what were the people doing since they didn't have the capacity or the financial strength to import products? They had to exist on their own. See, with for instance, for this particular prompt, what Marcus Garvey, what Barbados put up, right? Mm-hmm. She talks about the NGO hurricane relief. Now, I've lived through two major hurricanes. Now, there were things that was promised to these so-called countries in the Caribbean, as far as in terms of money, but nothing was delivered. At least not what I get to see from my end. I lived in a situation where you had all the people in the community begging for ice. So the youngers had to get together and formulate a plan where we could make their subsistence, their life that we was in that period of time for at least a month. We had to create a situation where these people were at least able to live, because the outside wasn't coming in. We had to deal with internal problems for ourselves. You know what I mean? And that's what we had to work at on our own. So the whole NGO arguing for me, it wears thin, because I've lived the experience and no one came, not even the politicians. Bahamians had to get themselves together to rescue other people who was living in house or in dire situations. We had to save ourselves, for a lack of a better word. I've lived that experience. So I don't know, man. I look at it in two different fronts. The brothers may look at it differently, but I look at it differently, man, for this particular issue.
No, I think it's just the difference of potential energy and kinetic energy, right? We have that potential energy, but we got to make that kinetic. We gotta actually make that ball roll down the hill now. You know what I mean? With that said, let me welcome in Gas. Gas made an interesting comment in the back chat. Gas, how are you this week?
I'm good, man. I'm on a world tour of finding out the female G spots.
Don't ask no fella where
Yeah, I was inspired by Razuli to go in the opposite direction.
All right, good. Gas, you made a comment in the private chat. First of all, what are your thoughts on this whole thing with Malcolm and the switch up to the interracial dating and all into the humanist side of things?
I mean, that's what happens when you don't, Malcolm, brilliant, man. Yet I think, and this is why, I always push that we have to study Western um, philosophy because that's the underpinning of their system, right? You have to study Kant, and it's difficult. I'm not going to say like, oh, Immanuel Kant is some of the most dense stuff you'll ever read, but it provides the basis for Kantian universalism. We have to study Newton. We have to study, people like like Hobbes, Locke. We have to study Edward Coke and their legal system and the battles that were going on. We have to study the mindset of these people so that way we know where to avoid. Because if we don't, what ends up happening is we wrap ourselves around the Western ideology with dashiki print, and we feel comfortable with it. So for him, it was in the American context, it's race first, and then he goes to Mecca and he sees what he believes is an Islam that they present to him, where everyone calls him brother and blah blah blah. But anyone who reads the history and I know Brother Bukhari and them like, oh gosh, you make apologies for the Arabs. No, I know what an Arab is not. I know there's no such thing as so-called Arab slave trade, but that doesn't mean I'm saying, yo, they're our best friends. I just saw a video about African American men who are dating Dominican women, and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you guys? Like, I grew up in New York City. Them Dominican people don't like us. I don't care how beautiful their women are. All these Spanish women, these Latin women. These women think they're doing me a favor by talking to me. They say something about raza, improve the race. They say, pelo malo, the hair is bad. Moreno pelo malo. Prieto, cocolo, mayete, pichon. This is what they say about us. The Arabs call us abid. So again, intellectually, I can tell you no such thing as an Arab, and that the problem is still white supremacy, but that doesn't mean I'm stupid enough to go hang with them. We don't need to. So I'm just saying, like, if we don't have that underpinning, we end up getting lost, right? So I don't need an ideology to say white people are A, B, C to know that there's no such thing as white people, but at the same time, the people who consider themselves white, we're at war with them. That I don't need to buy into an ideology that tells me to hate them for me to know that I'm at war with them because of what they choose to believe in, because I've studied what they say that they believe in. And I think that gives us a stronger canon. That's why it's called the Western canon. I always tell people that, I got that from my mentors. It's called the Western canon for a reason. They're aiming at our minds. But I just wanted to quickly say about, the consumption. This stuff has been going on, particularly in West Africa, since we first encountered these people, right? The trade routes in Africa were all centered around the Saharan trade routes, and they took us all up and down Africa, those caravan routes, the intertrade. We abandoned that as soon as we started dealing with the Portuguese on the coast and other Europeans who came to the coast, and the coastal elites sold us out, right? They're the ones who started to sell us out. They're the ones who got caught up with the importation of foreign clothing. So all this Africa print, when you guys see these useless I hate them. I don't hate anybody, but I can't stand them. These Afro beats, Nigeria Afro beats and jollof rice is garbage. Jollof rice is not Nigeria. Is not any person's culture in that place, that colonial zoo we call Nigeria. That's not anyone's culture. Those shiny clothes, those ain't African clothes. That's Dutch wax. That's Dutch print. The Dutch brought that because they made it. They wanted to sell that to the Indians, the Hindustans. The Hindus said, hell no, we don't want that. It looks terrible. So they were like, oh, who's the next dumb Negro to take it? And of course, the colonial chiefs on the coast were like, oh, yeah, I'll take it. What do you want? You want me to sell these people? Go ahead, take them. Give me some clothes. Give me a mirror. Give me a top hat. So we've been importing ever since. And part of the solution is like the brother, Trigger Happy is saying, we either got to make our own, but that is a strong and long process. That means we have to raise our own bonds. We have to finance ourselves. We need to study people like Mike Milken, the junk bond king. How is he raising financing? We need to look at the Japanese, how they were able to finance themselves and industrialize themselves and take the good from them and not become colonists like they did, because the Japanese committed a lot of atrocities in Asia, right? So how do we do this without becoming colonists ourselves? We need to look, should I say it on your platform? We can look at Germany, minus the atrocities that they did. The German machine was able to create a strong state, right? What did they do that was good? We could look at these other places. So that's a long-term play. And like I said, it involves financing. It involves the ability to raise bonds. It involves a lot of things. So in the meantime, we need to avoid or eschew consuming anything Western as best as we can. If we can't make it, we don't want it. And that was, funny enough, that was the speech Sankara was making the year before his own best friend, who ate in his mother's house, Blaise Compaoré, killed him. Blaise betrayed him, but he was saying that. He said, you people are complaining of colonialism. It's on your plate. The rice you're eating came from France, came from Vietnam, came from Thailand. The clothes you're wearing come from this place. So we need to look at that. How do we, and then like I said, that means, no more glamour until we can produce it ourselves. So our women ain't going to have the long Brazilian Yankee hair. Is your side chick going to be happy with that? When you tell her, hey, baby, look, man, we're going to get the Brazilian Yankee hair. Is she going to be happy with that? Is your wife going to be happy with that? That we got to grind and struggle as we're building this quote-unquote nation state of Africa stand, or whatever stand that we'll call it, or area that we'll call it, So that's just wanted to put that out there.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, I liked most everything you said just now, to be honest. And Trigger Happy 262 has this chat comment up. To be fair, I have no problems with taking concept that one likes and essentially modeling it to your own. That's the basics of trade, and that's what that's what I've always been imploring Black folks, man. We got to stop arguing about, well, I don't like that system or that system. And I get, sometimes you can see it coming from a mile away. So I get the criticisms of certain systems, but I also have a criticism for the fact that we ain't trying much of anything at the same time. You mentioned Mike Milk, and I'm familiar with him, and it's something I kind of want to do, or get some people around me who could break a lot of this economic stuff down, like real economics, not just supply and demand per se, but like the economics of nations and whatnot. But it that's a conversation I think we really need to have. And like you said,
I mean, you know how many of us haven't even read Adam Smith's book? It's there, it's free. We haven't even, many of us in the black side of the blackity black thing, right? As I like to always joke with Ted, we don't even read Keynes. We have, and it's on Amazon. It's like $3. You can get a lot of his books. He tells you how he was running economies. People don't even know Keynes was a day trader. And he even found difficulty as a day trader. And this guy was running economies. And he was like, man, the markets are a tough nut to crack.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Pause for the New Yorkers, right? But, but, I'm just saying, so we're not studying these people, like you said, economies of nations. We don't read Adam Smith, but we'll read, no disrespect to him, what's Claude Anderson.
Right.
He's not even an economist. He got his PhD in education. Shout out to Claude Anderson. I like him because they'll come for me. But he's not an economist. You get what I'm saying? So, I don't know.
Claude Anderson is also anti-African in a sense, too. As far as I'm concerned, yeah, there's some problems there. But, yeah, I appreciate that conversation. Any last words from anyone? All right. You can see other comments from Trigger Happy in the chat. If you listen to the playback, you guys could check it out. Let's go to Shooter Breeze topic number 3. That was a good conversation, folks. If you guys out there like that conversation, drop a fire emoji for me. Shooter Breeze